Welcome back to Trail Talk. I'm your host, Aaron.
And I'm Ricky Wayne.
And yeah, it's not a live show this week. So the both of us were in the studio recording an interview with Harry Jones, Merrell athlete. He just won the TransLantau 150k, the UTMB race. So been wanting to have Harry on the podcast for absolutely ages. He's been on the scene for a long time. Ricky, you're well familiar with Harry. He used to be a HOKA athlete.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Harry. He's a great guy. I'd damn near like to say we're friends at this stage. But I mean, when I first got into running, Harry was one of those guys I wanted to keep a close eye on because he was doing stuff like that felt reachable, do you know, to the normal man, let's say. You know, he looked like a guy that was just an everyday runner, like very, very talented, but it was like he was just working hard and he was getting places and he was winning races. And I just took inspiration from Harry, and looking at his story and how he evolved over the years. So I'm just delighted to have him on the show and ask him some cool questions.
Yeah, he's been on the scene for as long as I've been running trail, but yet he's still, he's got to be younger than me anyway, but big YouTuber, doesn't really do it so much anymore, but 73,000 subs on his YouTube channel. He only releases one a year now, but he used to be very regular. That's, I think, how I first met Harry, because it sort of predates Instagram, yeah, it definitely does, because I think going back on his channel, it's 10, 11 years old, the early videos. Back then, I was well into that vlog style, which he did so well. So we've got a load of questions on that. But look, we'll park the Harry chat because we're about to let him into the room and do the interview. Before we do that, thanking our sponsors, Tantrums, GOREWEAR, and XMiles. Links in the bio. Go and get your discounts and all of that good stuff. And yeah, let's roll the interview with Harry. Harry Jones, welcome to Trail Talk. Got to start off and congratulate you on your win. What was it, 3 to 4 weeks ago at the TransLantau by UTMB. Welcome to Trail Talk.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for the congrats. It was nice to get a win over in Hong Kong. Always enjoy racing.
How's the recovery going? 15 hours in the legs for that win?
It went really well. There wasn't really anything. There was no problems after the race. A bit of tightness in the hips. I think that's more towards the nature of the course in Hong Kong, where you got a lot of stairs, as everyone talks about Hong Kong. So you're just constantly pounding through the quads, pounding through the hips. And it's very jolty. But yeah, other than that, I was really pleased how the energy was in the race and afterwards. The only tough part was getting on a plane maybe 36 hours after finishing the race, something like that. So yeah, that wasn't too comfortable the few days after that, but recovery was great all the same.
Yep, the plane is not good for the hips.
No, and I'm a small guy as well, so yeah.
I don't think anyone on the call here is too
Yeah, the average has been pulled down by one individual maybe.
And Ricky, you're joining for this one, and normally you're on our live shows each week, but you've jumped in on this one, so that should add a new element, a new angle.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, when you asked me did I want to come on the show with Harry, I was only too happy to join. I jumped at the chance. I'm a big fan of Harry. I've met the man a few times. A really nice guy, really, really fantastic athlete. And I know I'm probably a lot older than Harry, but I mean, I've been a fan. I've idolized Harry for a few years, and I've loved watching his progression in the sport. So look, I'm always going to jump at the chance. And also, we do often think or talk about people, other ultra runners, and we do say one thing that an ultra runner needs is grit, man. And in your last race, you showed unbelievable grit to get the win, because you were in the lead for so long, and then you were pipped back into second place with not long left, and you could have sat on that and you could have said, do you know what, second is okay, second is still good, second is great, I don't need the win. But you really went back for it and then held on and you passed him again and got the win, and I think that's class to see, man.
Well, let's get into that story later on, but Ricky, let's not jump ahead of ourselves here. The man is king. Harry, I think for the Trail Talk audience, it would be great just to give a bit of an introduction, where you are, your history in the sport. And then I would also love to know when you got into sports in general. Did you run as a kid? Did you play other sports?
Yeah, sure. So right now I'm in Cardiff, which is a great city for running. You've got the parks and the Taff Trail, which leads all the way from here all the way up into the Brecon Beacons if you were to run at all. So there's great access basically wherever you are in this part of South Wales onto the hills, which are either side of the river. And then you're only a 40-minute drive away from Brecon Beacons, it's not a huge area, but there's plenty of space to explore there, plenty of decent sized climbs, and it's a tough place to train. It's anyone who's seen any pictures, anyone who does follow along what I'm up to, it's a very open area, as a lot of the mountains in the UK are. So you're exposed to the weather, whatever it brings. So it's always pretty challenging. But yeah, in terms of sport for myself, like everyone, I was always pretty active as a kid, got stuck in with a lot of different sports. Growing up, I guess my first sport I was really serious in was roller hockey. I think my friends, a lot of us in the area, probably watched Mighty Ducks on Channel 5 on a Sunday evening or something and got really psyched up. Yeah. And then, being in North Wales, we didn't have any ice rink nearby, or directly on our doorstep. So there was actually a lot of kids in the area getting into it. So yeah, played that pretty competitively as a youth, I guess. But yeah, loved that sport. That was awesome. And then alongside that, when I got to high school, kind of got first introduced to running through cross country in PE. I think it's probably like our first week, or first of the kind of winter weeks in school, and never even considered running as a sport. Just did football and everything else as every other kid does. And then came second in the class, and realised I was okay with it, and I enjoyed it. Joined the school running club, and then that led to the athletics club. Grew up then focusing on 1500 metres middle distance, so a few 800-metre races in there as well, and then cross country. Eventually did some road races, 5Ks, 10Ks, and then all the way up until university, was focusing in on middle distance. And then in my final year of uni, just kind of got tired of running in circles, kept having kind of a bit of runner's knee, a few other little niggles, and just couldn't find the love for it the same way I had been. It's kind of, I guess for a lot of people in that kind of sport, is, you either stick with it then and you continue and you see people fall off and maybe you excel another few seconds or so, or like me, maybe you just don't have I wouldn't say maturity is the right word, but just maybe you just get frustrated with the process of just putting it all out there 3 times a week on the track, throwing up after sessions, hobbling around between that, doing gym, doing the strength, and all the miles in between for what is, essentially a 3-minute, for me was a 3-minute, 50-second odd race, and feel like you're putting your whole passion, all your energy into it. And I just didn't feel like it was worth it really for that kind of race in the end. So I got a light, let's just give it a... So yeah, I kind of fell out of love with running a little bit in that period. Played some music, skipping forward a few years then, was keeping myself fit and healthy through cycling and a bit of running for fun, but really didn't fall back in love with running properly until I was actually living in Thailand at the time, and started thinking about jumping in some local races there and exploring the trails. I was in Chiang Mai, north of Thailand, which is actually a very popular trail running destination now, seemingly. At the time, it really wasn't a massive thing in Thailand. It was just very much the start of trail running in Thailand. But where I was actually living was from my apartment block, you could basically see the trailhead 200-300 meters away. So it was a perfect location just to dart up and down the mountain to a kind of a mountain temple at like 5 a.m. in the morning, then jump on the bike, ride to school and teach, which I was doing at the time. And then, fit whatever other training I felt like in at the time. So, it's kind of humble beginnings, I guess, but I would say I've always been a runner, even though I wasn't competitive for a fair while. But definitely trail running is what excited me again and got me enthusiastic about really chasing big miles and seeing what I could do.
I remember all of those. I remember you being in Thailand for, all of the YouTube stuff, and the lots of races that you were doing. That's certainly when you came on my radar. So you've got that athletic background in running, and then you stumbled across the trails because it was so handy to you. But how did you find out about ultra trail? Like, were there any mentors or people that turned you on to like the more extreme side of the sport?
Yeah, sure. So definitely, like everyone, I probably picked up Scott, Eat and Run, Scott Jurek, and then just those classic books. Then within town there was a good friend called Tamo. I'll shout him out, Tomo Vanas, and he was doing ultra trails, so I was following along what he was up to, and I was just kind of amazed really that he was going off into the mountains and doing 50k runs on the weekend. I couldn't put my head around it. Eventually got him to show me a bunch of the trails, and then realized, okay, I can keep up with Tamo. Maybe I can do this. And then eventually I ended up going over to Hong Kong and racing Hong Kong 100. And by that point, I'd raced some 50Ks in Thailand. I'd actually done 100K this Highland Ultramarathon it was called, which I think was a race maybe to put on 2 or 3 times. But the second time I ran it, it was my first 100K at the time. Randomly, Timothy Olsen was there, which was kind of funny. They invited him out and his whole family, so it was lovely to meet him. But I was really lucky to share the first lap of the race with him. So it was 2 laps of 50K. So we were just kind of nattering on the whole time. And it was kind of a bizarre experience suddenly to be in my first 100K and then be able to like learn on the fly with, at the time, who was, one of the greatest in the sport. So it's kind of a bizarre experience. After that experience, I think I thought, okay, maybe I can do something with this. I was 20 minutes or so behind him in the end, and I don't think he was racing it too seriously. It gave me a little insight as to, what it takes perhaps. Then I found myself racing Hong Kong 100. I was lucky enough to get a place in that race, and then it wasn't a massive trip from Chiang Mai. And at the time, Hong Kong 100 was on the Ultra Trail World Tour, and it had Sage Canaday, Tim Tollefson, who else? Didrik Hermansen, a few other names like that, those kind of classic guys on the tour back in the day. Started the race and then found myself pretty close to them for much of it and wasn't too far at the end. So just kept having these little hints, like if I take it a step up, if I focus on the training a little bit more, learn a little bit more specifically about training for Ultra Trail itself, then maybe I could take a step up in performance. And that's really just been my journey throughout the whole process, really. It's just been very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, maybe in the right races where I could feed enough inspiration from the guys that are around me, because at the time I was a fan like everyone else, but be just close enough to feel like maybe if I add that extra long run in or tweak the training slightly, I could get there in time, because I was still quite new to the sport too. So that was kind of the beginnings, I guess.
That Thailand race is shown on ITRA in 2014. Is that the one where you raced with Timothy?
So I did it in 2014. I think they cut the race short that year, and then I'm pretty sure I did it again. It was either the following year in 2015 or it might have even been 2016.
Yeah, 2016, yeah.
There we are. Yeah, I remember 2014, it was 2014, yeah, I remember it well. There had been, I think it'd just been some flooding, so they had to change the course, and it ended up being about 80K. But I just remember how much my feet hurt in that race. It was just unbelievable, the pain. All those feelings you get on your first long ultra, it was just times a million, it felt like. And thankfully, I've had definitely painful races since then, but that was just, I think I knew it was going to be tough going into it, but had all those existential crises through the race where you ask yourself, is this really the sport I want to be doing? But of course, a few weeks later, I was focused on the next
a week later, right? Yeah, this is definitely the sport for me. Like, you forget that pain straight away, especially if you've had a good race, But your progression was so fast, man. That's the thing. Like, you were away from running for a while. Okay, you had a background in cross country, in track, but I mean, your progression in ultra trail was so fast and so impressive.
Yeah, I think it was just the luck of finding the sport that really suited what I love to do. And I think what held me back in track was just not having the patience or the belief in the training, or that I'd done enough training to just chill out. A lot of the guys I was training with, I think that was probably where the frustration lay for me, is I was always trying to do more. In the summer, I'd spend at the sports campus in Uick, in Cardiff, in Kincoid. I remember one summer being there. It was the worst thing for me, really, because outside the window was the running track. I was in a house with a good mate who was the same level as me, so we'd go on our training runs together. Then I'd find myself sneaking off to the track half an hour later to do an extra set of 10 200s or something ridiculous like that, thinking that more was always better. In reality, I was just not giving myself enough chance to recover or freshen up for races even. And I think, with ultra running, that's what initially anyway just helped for me with the sport. Being in Thailand, I was teaching at the time, so I didn't have all the time in the world, but you get into a nice routine in those kind of hot and tropical climates of getting up early anyway, training before the sun's high. So like I said, access to the trails was great. And I'd either be running up the trails and then riding to school, riding home. And then in the end, it would be like a 3-hour training day amongst work. Or I'd be running across the city, taking long route round on the motorways, because you can get away with that in Thailand, and just putting myself through punishing kind of experimentation training in that regard that I wouldn't subscribe to anyone now, but just kind of put myself through the rigors early on, and it obviously paid off in some races. In others, maybe I was just a bit cooked in the final few hours, more than I would have been if I was a bit more patient with training. But yeah, definitely I was really lucky early on to kind of find my stride quite quickly. My recovery was always pretty good between races, so I could kind of stack them reasonably close together. And I was a lot younger then too, I guess, really. So the recovery was a bit faster. So that was 10 years ago, and it makes a difference.
I think recovery is easier in hot climates as well. Like the body generally
100% agree with
moves
you
easier.
there. Really. Like that's the main thing I miss about living in Asia is just, it felt like you could just smash yourself in the morning in a session, but because your body temperature, because your circulation is just always going, perhaps as well, for me, I was eating a lot more just incredible fruit and hydrating, just drinking coconut water straight from the coconuts because it's just all so affordable. So that maybe perhaps, yeah, the eating and then the recovery between it was just better, yeah, for sure.
Good luck finding coconut water and coconut in Cardiff.
Yeah, exactly. For under $5 a bottle or something, yeah.
Like whenever I look at your results, straight away you were on it. Like you were getting really good results, and you were coming back to the UK as well and mixing it up in races here. Like one of the early ones I can see on your list there from 2015 is like it's almost like a blast from the past. Looking at some of these races, like the vegan 3000s, the V.
Yeah.
And that always stood out to me as one that would have been epic to do because it was VK with nearly 4,000 meters of art, which, you know, it's one of those weird things that mountain runners kind of like, oh, those are great stats. That must be a cool race.
Absolutely.
Like, what were you learning racing there and then coming back and comparing that to racing in the UK?
So certainly I always felt like coming back to the UK and coming back to the colder climate was just suddenly everything was just a lot easier in terms of that. I think there's definitely a boost in the fitness from just training in the heat and the humidity initially, until that was lost, I guess. Yeah, for a race like the V3K, I think that was a learning curve for me when suddenly navigation was a part of the race. It wasn't all marked out. I do know I was lucky enough to grow up in North Wales. So at the time I had a reasonable knowledge of what to expect, at least in the mountains in Snowdonia. And certain mountains there I was familiar with quite well, but it didn't stop me getting horrendously lost in the low cloud on the Carnevai range. So I think if you saw the GPX from the race on Strava at some point, you know, if I found it, it would just be me doing some obstructive loop around some rocky face, just trying to find my way. And then in the end, I think I was running back on myself, arriving, realizing that running back into the field of racers coming towards me. So it wasn't a great day from a performance perspective, but it was definitely a learning curve that, you know, these are serious mountains when in Asia, you know, you have serious mountains, serious climbs, but the trails are so much, well, not all the time, so they're overgrown, but generally there's just one way to go through the jungle. You're not going to get lost. It's straight up, straight down, or you come across a village or what have you, and it all makes sense. But in the UK mountains, you know, same in Ireland for you, I guess, it's just you're off trail as much as you're on trail. And unless you know your bearings or unless you've got a compass or unless it's a clear day, which we're not always lucky to have, it's very easy to get spun around. And then before you know it, you're in a dicey situation.
Yeah, we don't know what we've got until we don't have it, but it's so different like running anywhere else other than the UK and Ireland because as you say, it's just open mountain, they've been deforested, I don't know, 2 centuries ago or something. Yeah. So you can see where you're going if it's a good day, but if you can't, then there's nothing to keep you on track. Like it's the same racing and running in Australia. There's a trail, like the trails have names. That's just something we're not familiar with. A trail in Ireland or England or Wales, wherever, it might be a sheep track. It might just be a trod that's been worn out through people going that way because it was the shortest way to the summit.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I was going to say. If it's going to be named, it's got to be named after a sheep. That's it, because it's a sheep that made it. It's not an official trail. There's no trail head. It's just a sheep track, and you're following that. And when the weather does come in, it doesn't matter if you've been up that trail 50 times. If the weather is bad and the visibility is poor, you're lost. That's the difference.
Yeah, it doesn't look the same. Harry, whenever you started like trail running and then ultra running, was there a point in that progression where you started to identify your strengths and what you were good at?
Yeah, certainly in terms of what I was good at naturally was probably the more runnable, flowy trails, harpering back to the speed that I perhaps still had from the track days. Yeah, you know, I definitely, those are probably the races that more naturally came to me and were a lot easier to manage. But certainly the enjoyment has always been in going on the bigger mountain days. And within time, you know, that that element of my running has improved. And I think I was lucky, like we said already, with training location that I was in, that I was able to really hammer the climbs quite a lot from, 1,300 meters of climbing straight out the door. So quite early on, that became a skill that develops quite nicely. So I think really these days where my skill lies is somewhere between the two, where you've got reasonable climbs, decent descents, and technical stuff I'm more than happy on. But some element of good runability in there where perhaps I can try and make up some time or run someone's legs off at the right place. When things are clicking, those are the races perhaps that suit.
One of the things that I've always kind of associated with you is, and it's not so much now, but like it was the YouTube days. Like you were like prolific, I would say, at it for a certain number of years on YouTube. Your videos and your channel go back 11 years, 73,000 subs, which whenever I looked it up before this pod, I was like, wow, that's even higher than I thought it was. Like 73,000 subs is kind of like, it's massive, certainly in trail running space. And back whenever you were doing that a lot, I was also really into that vlog style of YouTube. Like I was watching that type of stuff all of the time. What made you get into YouTube and filming the runs? Like what was the inspiration and what was the reasoning behind it?
Yeah, I mean, the reasoning was initially probably like quite a few people who start on YouTube or do YouTube was purely just to kind of connect friends and family with what we were up to in Thailand. I mean, I'm not sure if any of the real old stuff is still on there or not, in all honesty. I don't know if we've ever taken anything down. Maybe we have, but initially it was literally like we kind of, myself and Louise, we just recognized that we were in this amazing part of our lives where we were living in Thailand, and by that point it felt like home really, and we wanted to be able to share that with friends and family who we try and explain it to. But yeah, it was just kind of sharing us at the market or shaky video of like the first kind of GoPros that you had where there's no stabilization, of me just jolting down the trail and just, I was just really stoked with what I was up to and really enjoying it. I just wanted to share it with people and hopefully, just show people what was possible really. And that it's the sport, the sport as well was something that I was just super stoked on and still am, but it was just such a new thing to me, a new concept, this ultra trail, and I couldn't quite believe that I found this thing that really encompassed what I felt in terms of just trying to relive almost those moments when you're young. And this is something that I've always found connected with ultra. Like I kind of always find it as a way to reconnect to when you're young and it's a summer's day and you're out with your mates, riding your bikes, skating, whatever you're doing. And you get so exhausted, but you just keep going and going and going and going. And then by the end of it, you just pass out at home. And like, that's what I found with ultra trail is almost like that raw way just to get the energy out, but to really discover yourself when you get to that point when you feel like you've got no energy. Obviously you keep going, you keep moving. So the stoke was just always high with that. So I just wanted to spread the gospel of ultra trail, I guess, with the world and just show what I was up to. And yeah, at the time it was, I guess, like the vlogging era on YouTube. So a lot of the videos were those kind of simple vlogs. Some of them were perhaps more of that 5 ways to focus on your running or get whatever. And some of those are probably where subs picked up back in the day. There was one of them that went viral purely probably for the thumbnail. Some people found it offensive. Some people thought it was enjoyable. And it's just literally me reading a running book sat on the toilet. You can't see anything.
Yeah.
But it got people clicking on the video, I guess. But those are the videos I never enjoyed making because it's not the videos I click on and watch. I love watching people's adventures, and especially when someone's stoked and enjoys it. And that was always what we enjoyed making. But yeah, we made the other stuff as well. And we were kind of experimenting, I guess, on the platform. It's still something that definitely hoping to be more consistent of into the future years, because over the years, it has really struck me and been very very heartwarming for people at events, even at UTMB this year, or even in Hong Kong. You just get people from all over the world coming up to you and saying, hey man, like, loved your videos, thought it was you, and like, when's the next one coming? And it's one thing to film a video, I guess, and then Louise would edit them and then we get them out. So that's why the efficiency was there. If it was me editing, it would have never been as streamlined as it was, I guess. But it's one thing to do that and just throw it out there and see your number ticking. It's probably the same podcast and seeing a number ticking over views and what have you. But then it's another thing completely when you have that face to face with someone who genuinely is stoked, or even at a race because you've put a video out there. I just couldn't believe that. And even now to have people say that to me has been really kind of I think at one point maybe I felt like it's a sense of responsibility then that I had to do it right. But I think what I've realized really is it is about the connection and just being genuine. And that was all I always wanted to be with videos, just be genuine. And maybe for some people that could seem a bit awkward on camera sometimes because I'm not. Maybe that was maybe what made people watch, was that they could see that I was just being honest with the camera, or my thoughts and feelings on the races, or trying to share things. But ordinarily, I'm not the kind of guy who is like, look at me, everybody, and has this massive charisma about me. Some people are like that, and some people are very good at that, and that's what makes their channels blow up, perhaps. But for me, I'm not that kind of attention grabber. But I think I've recognized over the years that there is a value for anyone to share their story, and even if it's one person who's stoked off it, then that's a success at the end of the day.
I went through a phase of like Dan Whitehead and Harry Jones and Scotty
Yeah, sure.
Hawker videos, and then all of a sudden the three are in each other's videos, and it was deadly. It was like Christmas, birthday, everything at once. Like I was going, this is just deadly, because like your YouTube came onto my radar, right? Was the very first time I got introduced to a pair of HOKA shoes, right? And I was thinking about buying the Clifton 3s at the time, and I was looking for anything on YouTube about reviews, and you had a running form video up on the Clifton 3 or something, but you were just running, and that's how I found you. But then like fast forward a couple of years and you're training for CC, and Dan Whitehead is training for TDS or something like that, and Scotty Hawker is coaching Dan. Man, I have watched those videos a million times. I loved them. And then even your UTMB one, you know, and like what you were saying about being real and being human and being honest, like that one there was the UTMB one, the DNF, and it was, I'll tell you, lad, it was brilliant, and it was high quality. That's the
Yeah.
thing about YouTube as well. Like I don't make YouTube videos because they'd be shit. Because I can't edit for shit, right? But your videos, like, they were really, really well done. They were class, man. I loved them.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I can't take credit for that. Like all the great stuff probably is from Louise, taking the B-roll shots and taking the time and directing me in terms of getting me to be more to the point when I'm talking, which I'm probably not doing very well now. But yeah, no, I think that's part of it as well. You know, we kind of ended up holding ourselves to quite a high standard. I disagree with what you said about yourself personally. Like, if you had a YouTube, I'd enjoy watching it from time to time for sure, and I'm sure a lot of people would, because it's your personality and your honest, raw take on things. And yeah, I hope to feel like social media maybe moves a bit more towards that direction. I'm sure it is, maybe in some streams, and people are all into different things. But yeah, you know, the long form content where you kind of somewhat get to know someone, or at least get to a point where you're really vouching for them on race day is what has inspired me early on, and what does inspire me. And I think it's everyone's got a story to tell, and it doesn't matter if it's shaky footage or whatever, and it certainly doesn't have to be Dan Whitehead level, because no one achieved that except for him. That guy was a pro of a pro, really, wasn't it? So it was sad when he didn't continue, but I think he had some health issues I guess to deal with, didn't he? So, but yeah, it was a special time that summer. Yeah, training with Scotty and Dan, and yeah, being able to collaborate with shots, and it was all very natural as well. You know, it wasn't like right, we're going to get this shot here now, and then it's just that we were all kind of filming our own things and doing our own things. So someone always had a camera taking a cool shot, and everyone saw it, and it just kind of came together easy, I guess, really.
So the secret's out. It was a 2-person operation. It all makes sense now. That
it was never a secret, but sure.
But that's the problem with YouTube. Like, the filming is like almost the easy part. The editing is, you know, to create a 10-minute vlog, it would have taken me like 2 8-hour shifts to edit that.
It takes time.
You know, and even at that, it was, you know, it still wasn't good enough, if you know what I mean. So, like, Louise, does she have like talent in that area, or was it just, I'll do that and you do your thing?
Yeah, I mean, she's very creative, but yeah, it's definitely self-taught. So I think early on it was like a lot of painstaking time to figure out the best way to go about it, or even how we were going to do it. But certainly, if you watch the early videos, you know, it's just you just see that progression, I guess, in the standard as we got through it, and eventually, you know, we could put some money towards some better cameras and a microphone, and all those little things make a big difference, of course. I think these days the barriers, it's so easy in one sense. I know I'm not throwing videos out every week, but I mean, in terms of what we have in our hands now, if I think back to then, it was only, it wasn't that long ago in terms of years, but even, what you've got on, like, I've got like an old iPhone now at this point, but it's got like cinematic video on it. It's got a wide angle on it if you want it. Then you had to have a camera to do that stuff to get a bokeh effect behind you or whatever, which looks professional, and a decent camera was expensive to buy. It certainly was for us. Whereas these days, I think if someone's truly intrigued as to what they can do, I'm not trying to push YouTube on people now. I'm definitely not a shill working for YouTube, but yeah, I think everyone should, if they're keen to give it a go, just why not? Just get your phone out and flip it sideways and film like this a bit, and don't be scared to kind of speak your truth on your experience and what you want to do with your racing, because certainly for me, the YouTube, I think, definitely helped me to build a career out of this. And I hesitate to say that, but yeah, it's not these days. I mean, I like to think that still, as a professional runner, it's about performance, and I think we're certainly circling around a bit more to that, which we can see now in the front packs with how the quality of these athletes and the level is insane, as we know. But a lot of guys don't do much on socials, which is great because that shouldn't have to be their job. But I think certainly when I was coming up, that helped me get my foot in the door, perhaps with some opportunities that maybe would have been looked past me, and allowed me to get to races early on that I wouldn't be able to afford to go to, basically.
That may be true that you were like throwing eyes on a brand, but I mean, you were still putting in great performances, Harry. You know what I mean? Take nothing away from your accomplishments, because you were just showing us how good you were, actually, as well as like promoting a brand.
The thing with like the YouTube now is the YouTube. Did I just call it the YouTube? The thing with YouTube now is like brands and athletes are leaning more into trying to do the longer form content, right? But you were doing this years ago, and you, like, with the numbers and the views that you were getting, you really could have been making decent revenue off of YouTube and in AdSense. And now you've backed away, life changes, things come along that take up your time. You're back in the UK, but you were really ahead of your time, because athletes are trying to do this now, not because they see it as a way to be better athletes or whatever, but just it's something that brands are interested in. Yes, performance is number one. Maybe the levels were closer together years ago, whereas performance definitely outshines, content, we'll call it that. Like, if you look at like the Boulder Boys and other athletes, they're trying to create content as well, just to add that extra string to their bow, I suppose you would say. Talk a little bit about why the consistency changed and you've moved away to it. And for the viewers' context, I think you're averaging one video a year the last 2 to 3 years, whereas prior to that, it was, there was something new maybe to watch every month or very regularly.
Yeah, I think probably it started to drop probably like maybe like other people. 2020 when COVID hit, I guess, really. I think, we had pretty good consistency up until around then. In terms of my running itself, I think 2019 was my first 100 miler at UTMB, which was maybe not the easiest first 100 miler to do. But yeah, there was a good performance there, 15th. And I was super psyched going into 2020, like a lot of people were, I guess, with their own goals and everything else. And then fourth at Gran Canaria, pretty close race with, people I look up to, like Dylan Bowman and Pau Capel and Pablo Villa. And then literally finished the race, go back to the hotel. I'm waffling now. But then we start hearing about this COVID thing, I guess, really. I think it was
like this was right at the start of March. Like that was the couple of weeks when things were like, what the hell is this? What are these things that we're hearing about?
Yeah, sure.
And it's interesting you mentioned Pau Capel, because March of 2020, Pau Capel had just come off a blitzing UTMB the previous year. That was peak Pau Capel.
Yeah, absolutely. He was the man. He was definitely the man. Still is. What I'm saying really is, I guess, around that kind of whole COVID era, we just moved back to the UK that year. And then I think it kind of felt like the wind was out of the sails a little bit, because I guess we'd up to that point, we'd always been lucky enough to somewhat move from race to race. So it was always very easy to get the camera out because I was always pretty stoked with where we were at. Or I was able to get to the mountains and train regularly, and suddenly we were in lockdown and now. So I think fair to say, like a lot of people, I just felt very deflated and inspired, whereas some people perhaps took that time to elevate their presence on YouTube and pump out stuff. It just, without putting it down on the podcast now, but it felt like there was more important things going on in the world than to run around and me talk to a video. In hindsight, maybe that would have been helpful for a lot of people, but I guess I kind of felt heaviness around that period of, that a lot of people were dealing with. Yeah, but thankfully that year was made amazing because we had our son River, and then that kind of just led into dad life a bit more, really. So still focusing on the training as much as ever and the racing once we could get back doing that again. But suddenly we had a new thing to juggle in our life, really. And that's an amazing journey in itself. We've put videos out since, and like you were saying about the UTMB one, that didn't go to plan. I think that was a video that kind of went well, that perhaps portrayed that race and that situation well. And it's probably a situation that I'd not really reflected on the channel before, because I'd had a DNF the previous November, I think it was 2021, mute, when I just busted my ankle basically. But yeah, I think it was great that I'm pleased that we got that video together, because it showed that that I wasn't just throwing out the highlights, I guess, really. I wanted to kind of keep that real. But yeah, since then, frustratingly for Louise, there's lots of footage floating around that I've got on SD cards somewhere. Some of it great, some of it probably a little bit more raw, but valuable stuff that perhaps there will be some videos down the line that we can kind of piece it together in some epic video or something. But there's stuff out there that hasn't been made, which maybe should have been made from later on in that year after the UTMB of the World Champs that went really well, when I just missed out on that top 10. But yeah, just kind of lost the flow of it, really. It's definitely, like I say, it's a format that I want to get more consistent with again, but it's just getting back into that routine of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not making promises right now, but there is footage, and there is footage from recent races too.
There's a chance.
There's still a chance. Definitely.
I'm not in my YouTube vlog watching era anymore, so
yeah, that's it.
I think viewer type or whatever it's definitely moved on a lot.
It's evolved a bit, hasn't it? Yeah.
So much of it is short form content now, which, I mean, it's a totally different experience. Whereas in the vlog era, it was a case of I'm casting that to the TV. I'm going to do my mobility in front of the telly.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
on, I just don't do that anymore. But it was something that used to be regular for years and years. Go ahead, Ricky.
I do it. I still do it. I still YouTube is probably the #1 channel watched on my time, we'll say, and I'd be always looking at it. So I definitely miss the Harry Jones. I miss the Dan Whitehead stuff. I miss, Scotty's still banging out videos, so I watch a lot of Scotty stuff. They're just great. I mean, as an ultra runner, as a trail runner, as a fan of the sport, there's not enough good real content out there for us to watch. I'm still going back on YouTube watching Hawks v Miller, you know what I mean? Because there's new stuff coming out, but it's not as good. It's not as good as what it was. It's too brand focused, if you know what I mean. And it's not the actual person, not the actual athlete. And I think that's a much cooler form.
Yeah, I think if it's brand, you can totally see the stuff that it's brand backed. It has a different flow to it. It's not as raw. It's a little bit, it's just not as raw. We could talk about YouTube all day, but we do have to talk about more about the recent race, because I'd love to just hear about that. As I said before, it's 116k, 1,600 meters of vert is the stats, but it's in the 100-mile category as a by UTMB race.
Yeah.
What was it like going back to Asia and competing at that event?
Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting one. As I said, when I was in Thailand, I would go to Hong Kong not frequently, but I think in the end I raced there 5 times when we were living in that part of the world. I ended up doing TransLantau in, I think it was 2018. It was, or it might have been 2017. Can't remember right now. But yeah, I remember it being a very tough race, and that was definitely one of the draws for me going back to it this year. And Hong Kong's always been a place where it really surprised me the first time I went there. Unless you know about the trail scene there, or you know about the mountains there, if you say to someone on the street or a friend, "Oh, I'm going to race," who isn't a runner, "I'm going to go race in Hong Kong," they're kind of like, what? Like, because you just think skyscrapers, maybe they think of, just think of skyscrapers and busy city, basically. And it certainly is that in parts, but you've just got incredible mountains straight on the other, you've got your skyscrapers, your high street and whatever else going on. But other side of the metro, there's 1,000-meter mountain, there's islands, there's everything you could want really on your doorstep in terms of trail running. So Lantau itself is an island off the coast of mainland Hong Kong. It's the biggest island, I believe. And yeah, the trails there are just really wild and really incredible. The mountains are really quite beautiful, I think, in their own Asian way. And you've got lots of trails which are really tough going. There's no switchback. I don't think there's probably one switchback on that island. It's just straight up. So when you do get to the mountains, it's just super steep, and it's either rough trail or it's steps. Some of them are concrete, really regimented in size, your 6 inches, and then you've got your big rocky steps and then your slabs. You've just got it all, and it's just really, really a tough race to handle if you can't run on steps, but it just really saps the flow out of the race constantly, and it's really hard going on the legs, and it's really enjoyable. I just really enjoy running in Hong Kong, and TransLantau, I was really pleased, obviously, with how the race went, but in terms of racing on it, I just found it so much fun.
Yeah, Ricky and I have spoke about steps quite a lot. Obviously, I'm in Australia at the moment, and every trail seems to have steps.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes they're gnarly steps, sometimes they're beautifully crafted steps. But as we've said before, Ricky, like, you can grind up various gradients of climb, and it's just a case of changing the cadence, changing your speed. But like, whenever steps are involved, it's like the efficiency, the tax is just higher than just a shuffle. Like, ruins the flow. But I guess maybe you were used to steps from before, or were you thinking about this in the training for this race?
So in the training for this race, I didn't necessarily do a lot of step focus work. There was a point in the race where I was thinking, it's in the middle of the night, because we started at 8 p.m, so it's a night race basically. But yeah, there was a point in the race where I was thinking, maybe I should have gone to Mid Wales or North Wales. There's a mountain called Cadaridris, and it's about 950 meters high. But one of the approaches is basically just from top to bottom. They've just last year or the year before that, they've relaid the trail, and it's basically just slabby steps from top to bottom now. And as part of me, I was thinking, kicking myself at one point, thinking that would have been the perfect little icing on the cake in the training block to hammer up and down there, 4 repeats or 3 repeats, whatever it would be, and just hammer the legs, get the stairs in there, and just get the flow. There was definitely a bit of kind of learning on the fly again within the race, trying to get into that rhythm of the race, as you just discussed. The race itself panned out with me and Christopher Clemente running together at the front through the majority of the race, and from quite early on, you could see that Chris was moving a bit more efficiently up the steps. Maybe his legs were like a couple of inches longer than mine, so that just gave him a bit more of a push. I don't know. But it was like every few steps I'd have to just jog a step just to get back to him. And it was a bit of so this is got to find my flow again here. Not quite hiking at the same pace and rhythm that he is, but we're keeping it together. But I think in terms of descending, I think I'm not a super tall guy. I've not got big feet. I think that helps running downstairs fast, really. I can imagine being a lot taller and trying to hammer it down some of those stairs when you've got size 12 feet. It's just a different race then, isn't it, completely?
I never thought about that.
So I think there's certainly that element that helps smaller guys, perhaps. But yeah,
and you're lighter. Every foot strike you put through running the flat, I think I heard you put 7 times your body weight through it. If you're coming down steps hard, how much weight are you actually putting through each of your quads, each of your legs, your hamstrings, your calves, your whole entire body? If you're smashing downhill for hours and hours, man, it's going to take so much out of you.
Yeah, absolutely does. And that was something I was really stoked with in the race, because, like I said, it didn't necessarily do anything specific in terms of stairs. I've been running the beacons for my long runs as normal. Sure, some of those climbs are quite short, and you could argue that there's 1 or 2 climbs there where it's paved, where it is kind of stairs, but it's not 1,000 meters of mountain from top to bottom of stairs. 200-300 meter climbs or so, So I was really pleased that, in the race, the stairs seemed to be going down well, and throughout the race, there was a pattern emerging where Chris would maybe put a little bit of time on me on the hills, but quite quickly I was catching him back up on the descents again. So it was a race where, yeah, the control was there and the patience was there, and I was feeling relaxed, and I'm really pleased that the legs seem to be responding quite well to the drops on the stairs.
It's funny you saying that about, that thought in the race of, oh, shit, maybe I should have trained more in stairs, or that would have been nice icing on the cake. Because I think regardless of where you are in the field, everyone can connect with that. You've had that
Sure,
feeling
yeah.
in the race going, I should have done more stairs. I should have done more whatever, something a little bit more specific to that actual race. So it's pretty cool that you can connect back to that, the same as, we've all had recent memories of those types of things. This was like your first big international win in a couple of years. Like, how did that feel to be like right back up at the top?
Yeah, it felt great. This season has been really quite frustrating. You probably see that from results, maybe. Training has been great. It was good. Yeah, so it's just been a frustrating start to the season, really. I took a hard fall at Chianti on my face. Thankfully, didn't smash any teeth out, didn't break any nose or anything like that. But it was one of those falls when you hit the ground. I was definitely dazed. Wasn't concussed, I don't think, but the legs just weren't the same after that. You just kind of lose the steam in your legs. And at the time I was leading the race, it was a close pack of us, but I was definitely feeling really strong and fit, and think I was in a podium position for that one. But it's easy to say it now. But yeah, that was a frustrating start to the season, having to kind of drop out after a heavy fall. And then the rest of the season just felt like I just wasn't quite back up to where I needed to be. Training was flowing well. Everyone was feeling great in those respects. A lot of work behind the scenes and preparations with heat training, and a lot of time doing the right things, which aren't necessarily fun, but get you super fit. A lot of treadmill work, a lot of uphill intervals, a lot of threshold work, more than the previous season. So the fitness was just there, but I just hadn't been putting it together in the race. There was maybe a little bit of bad luck thrown in there as well, like Transvolcania this year. I felt so ready for that one. Thrashing myself with sauna work and heat preparation, only to turn up on the start line in hammering rain, being told at the start that things might get a bit sketchy up there with the weather on the mountain. And then, an hour later, everyone was just in pieces. You'd see, by the time I got to the top of the volcano there on the island, there was just people. I'd never seen so many runners in your foil blankets at the side of the trail, just shaking and just huddling together and trying to get into the next aid station. It was just carnage. So yeah, there was a lot of things that training wise were going well through the season and picking up nicely, but just never came fully through. I think some of that perhaps did start last year in CCC, where I broke some ribs. There was definitely a rush to get back into fitness and get another race in at the end of the year there in Mallorca, which I shouldn't have done, really. So there was a few setbacks, really, of just trying to kind of brashly push myself through what was an injury that was still hurting on the start line in November. And if you've ever damaged your ribs, it can be horrendous. And so I think it was just a year, really, where there was a bit of frustration where I just wasn't piecing it together. And to make it all worthwhile somewhat by getting a win in TransLantau, it was nice just to feel like it wasn't time wasted and it wasn't a complete write-off of the season. It was definitely a bit of a gamble doing this race with it. Yeah, with a lot of the running preparation for the race being, autumn here in Wales, where you've just got hammering rain and cold temperatures. And then Hong Kong, it was actually hotter than they expected it even to be for race weekend for this time of year. So going straight from Wales over there with only a few days between getting on the plane and then racing, and then a night race as well and turning around, it was just a big relief that it came together, and a big relief mentally that I knew there was something special there. If I played my cards right in the race, to then make it happen was great.
Yeah, like for you, was it one of those where this season it hasn't been the season that I wanted, right? And we all like have those kind of years or months where shit isn't going well, and then we panic and we try to force that good race. Like, were you going there with I want to give this a right good swing, a big swing, and then were you going for the win?
I guess the mantra into this race was just to be patient more than anything. I felt very confident that it's possible. And then when me and Chris broke off, I knew that it was definitely between me and him, because you couldn't see head torches at the top of climbs for anymore. And we only had a couple time. I only knew the gap in the race a couple of times. So I think the last time I heard it was 20 minutes, and we weren't slowing down. So I was confident that the race was between me and Chris. But yeah, I was definitely aiming to be very patient into the race. I knew that what was coming very late into the race as well. Like the last major climb up Lantau Peak is it's ridiculous. So you come into this aid station for the second time that you've already been through, but rather than kind of dashing through some nice flowy trails to the right, you literally take a left up Lantau Peak, and I can't remember the stats, but you're doing big, almost 2 foot. It feels like 2 foot big jumpy steps, and if you've got nothing left in the leg, no power, which I only barely had, you're just crawling up there. And then obviously down the other side isn't any easier too. So patience was definitely the mantra in the race, and just trying to stay relaxed and stay calm. And with these longer races, I think it's a bit easier, at least for me, to mentally do that, as opposed to a fast 75k like Chianti. If you make a mistake there, then you're not going to catch back up with the field. In a race like this, if you're relaxed and you're playing your own pace, to a degree at least, you're not going to lose big ground on anyone. And that's what kept me fighting late into the race, into that last aid station, the second to last aid station. I got there just before Chris, so I was like, okay, let's do this now. Let's finish this thing. Let's seal the deal. And then up the last climb, Chris just called up to me again. And it was just, at this point, we'd been back and forth like this, trading blows for hours.
Steps?
Yeah, just up and down the steps. And it's just, oh man. And then he just pulled away from me. But yeah, I was confident that around that kind of headland that we were running around, which was like 8k at that point, it was really hot. I was pretty confident that he wasn't going to get too far if he did pull away from me. I couldn't see him because the trail was so windy, but just kind of kept pushing through. And then to see him at that last aid station was exciting, knowing that there was only 5k left. But at the same time, yeah, I couldn't help but laugh, because it was just like, fuck, I've got a race now.
Yeah.
30 plus degrees heat in the sun, and I can't just let him go now. This is it. So running up alongside him, then, went for the high five. Come on, man, let's do this. Try and gauge where he's at. And
no hand holding.
There was not going to be any hand holding. No, you can't. Obviously, the sentiment, I can understand why people do that, but I think at least for first place, you can't hold a hand. There's always something. Yeah. There's always a sprint there, isn't there? And the respect wouldn't be any different to each other in the end if it was a sprint to the line. It would only make it more entertaining and fun for everyone watching. But for me too, I would be quite happy to come second if it came down to a sprint finish. But yeah, unfortunately for him, he just was really feeling the heat, I think, at that point, and I managed just to run away from him. So the last 5k, certainly I had my head on the swivel. I wasn't feeling relaxed, because at that point, in the race, we'd just been appearing on each other's shoulders constantly when someone had gone away. So it definitely wasn't over and over until it was over, until I was at the line. But
yeah, what are we talking?
It was good feeling.
15 hours of a race, an actual race, where it came down to the last 5k, with the last 2k even,
Yeah, it was great. I mean, there was a bit of a truce, I think, through the night. We were definitely we weren't trying to throw punches at each other, through the night. It was definitely, there was a bit of respect there, which was great. And I think ultimately it made us both have a better race for it. I think if we'd been trying to drop each other on climbs or descents and really pushing on for that first 8 hours, it would have just made it. We would have just been in a bigger mess than we were probably at the end. And we certainly weren't moving fast at the end. It was really hot, and the heat was really, really screwed us up by the end. I know that Chris was in a big mess at the finish. He was really hot and needed to cool down. But yeah, I'm glad that I think he's a similar guy to me. He's quite like chill and relaxed and happy to have some company, because starting at 8 p.m, it was a good 11 hours of darkness, 10 and a half before the sun came up. So it was a long night. It wasn't going to be fun if we were just off on the trail on our own.
Yeah, certainly good to work together through the night like that. And Chris is such an experienced guy as well. Talk about the end of the race, because as you say, like coming into the last aid station, and did you say there was 5k to go?
It's just over 5k to go, yeah. And a lot of that is runnable, kind of coastal trail, few steps in there still, but you're kind of just making your way basically to that last seaside village of Moiwo, and then you can see the start line across the bay. It was just a heat at that point though. You just couldn't get, it just couldn't move any faster than I was, and I was just probably 5 minutes.
I think you moved pretty fast. Like, you still put 11 minutes on Chris in K. So he must have been in the hurt locker.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was just mega overheating. And I'm glad he finished, and got it done, because he was certainly he certainly needed to cool down at the finish line, and he put a lot of work in to that point. But yeah, I think where I was able to run, he was just probably having to walk a lot of it, I guess.
But amazing though, because you got to the aid station and he was still in it. You were probably settling. I'm not saying, I'm just thinking, right? I'm saying you could have been just settling for second before you got into that aid station, and then you realize, oh man, he's still here. He's actually still there. And then it's, race is back on. I know you might, your legs probably don't want to race, but the race is on. Like, I think that made for me, that was checking in on the race. That made it so exciting to see. And then it made it like an extra special finish for you, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was just a big surprise to still see him there, because if I'd have been in his position, I would have been ducking out of there as fast as I could. Because certainly if you're seeing someone at the aid station, even if you see them leave, you know there's a chance, don't you, I guess, really. So you just want to be in and out of there as fast as you can. But yeah, I'm not sure how long he was there before I got there. He may have literally just come in, because it was such an overgrown bit of trail before that I couldn't see much more than 100 meters ahead of me. So yeah, he may have literally just walked into the aid station himself. But it was definitely, before that, I think mentally I was happy. I remember running feeling happy, thinking, okay, this race has gone really well, and it has been a great battle, and if this is second place, then that's awesome, because I've had a great race. I'm happy and pleased with this. And he just pulled away from me at the end, and that's how it goes. And it wasn't like I just got completely thrashed. But yeah, to see him, it was just like, oh, okay, just gotta keep hammering this thing out now. There's no cruising into the finish line. And like I said, even up until, that last straightaway, I didn't know I had it, because you just don't know. I wasn't sure where he was at, because again, I just couldn't see too far behind me. And up until that point, we kept popping up on each other's radar within a minute or so of us breaking away. So it was fantastic to have a race like that, and certainly an amazingly enjoyable experience for it to not just be an easy win. Yeah, sure, maybe it was just me and Chris in the end who were really at each other's throats for the race. But yeah, would have been wouldn't have been as satisfied if it was just me out front.
But like, that's the thing with all of the UTMB races. It's the front of the race is always sharp. It's only when you get to the finale that sharpness extends, dozens deep. So looking like the last, I think, are you 3 years in a row at CCC, or maybe more? I'm not sure.
Before, yeah.
This was a 100-mile category race. So I mean, are we seeing the signs here that you're going to go for the big loop next year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still deciding on that. Like you just said, 4 years in a row at the UTMB finals at CCC. This year, CCC, I think was it was disappointing this year. Last year, I think I didn't give myself 2024. I don't think I gave myself enough credit of what I achieved that day. In this day and age now, at CCC is a great result. It was my fastest time to date, and it was my, and I've run.
Yeah, and you had a previous 8th place finish.
Sure,
at CCC, right? So like, you're going from 8th to 17th, but you're running way quicker at 17th, and I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years older,
Yeah, and last year as well, like I said, I took a heavy fall. I broke ribs. I took months to heal at the other end of it. In the race, it obviously slowed me down. I couldn't get my poles out and hike comfortably. I couldn't run down hills fast as I wanted to. So I think, like a lot of us, I fell into the trap of just not this year going into CCC, of not maybe appreciating how much of an effort I did put in last year, and can pat myself on the back almost for having a strong race when the odds were against me in the race. And mentally, maybe this year, certainly psyched to be in Chamonix, certainly always stoked to be a UTMB race, but maybe CCC this year mentally wasn't, my passion just wasn't there for that race now. I definitely want to improve my time. Still think I can run a lot faster on that course. But yeah, the bug is there to go do the full loop again. It blows my mind away that the last time I did that fully was 2019. It's just gone so fast. It feels right to give it a good push again, and to make it a couple of year, 2-3 year project to see what I can do there. If it doesn't amazingly, if all the stars don't align on the first time back there. 2022 I was there. I had to pull out, but that was kind of a pull out with the focus of Worlds 6-8 weeks later, which paid off in that instance. But again, my son was a lot younger then as well, so sleeping through a full night still wasn't happening for me. So I was just tired. So into next year, if I decide to go for it, I'm certainly very excited about it. I don't know for sure right now. I think there's a few things I just need to consider, and maybe part of that is just considering if a year away from the finals could ultimately be a good thing, just to run a couple of different 100-milers through next year, a few more different experiences with that kind of distance before returning to the full lap. But there's always the draw where obviously if you've got the ticket, you want to take it, especially these days where it's, you got to race your way in basically.
I just think if you've got the ticket, you'll end up coming through to next September just with major FOMO.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
maybe the year after when there's another World Champs is the year to skip the finals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the World Champs in Cape Town Cape Town just looks amazing. I've never made it down there, and certainly that would be great to give another go for.
So I think Ricky, we're probably in agreement that we're yes, Harry for UTMB 2026. So
Definitely.
you're getting 2 votes from us.
Yeah, because like for me as well, like I'm putting my name in the hat as well. So I'm really hoping to be doing the big loop as well. So, it'd be deadly to be in Chamonix, maybe at the same time and join you on a run or two,
Yeah, for sure, man. Definitely. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Moving on a little bit, I want to talk about sponsorship. For a long time, we always associated you with HOKA, and now you're with Merrell. And Merrell we've chatted as well about Merrell shoes, and probably see some over my shoulder, but I love some of the stuff that Merrell have been putting out over the past couple of years. Like I think the Skyfire has been my uphill workout shoe for a couple of years anyway. Hanging the pieces at this stage, but I can still grab them for a workout. What was it like running all those years in HOKA and then moving to another brand?
Yeah, I mean, I was with HOKA for many years, and then prior to being with them, I was running in their shoes. So yeah, it was always going to be an adjustment to running a different pair of shoes from any brand when that's all your feet know and have kind of evolved through the sport knowing as well. But yeah, the move to Merrell was definitely exciting. Like you just mentioned, the Skyfire there, the Long Sky. There's short distance almost, those sky racing shoes. In terms of the design, the weight, and the focus that they put into them is definitely exciting to me. Last year with the release of the Adapt Matrix, the MTL Adapt, that's been a shoe that I've really enjoyed running into. It's that higher stack that perhaps I'm a bit more used to and suits me a bit more in the longer races. Certainly in TransLantau, the shoe really excelled on those trails where it's really rocky, it's really rough, it's really unpredictable with the stairs. So I don't think my legs have felt so comfortable late into a race with that much descent as I had with those before. So yeah, in terms of Merrell, it's quite an exciting brand to be with, because certainly making big moves, it feels, in behind the scenes in terms of what the test lab guys are really working towards with the shoes. And having seen glimpses of what's to come, it is very exciting. Merrell have obviously been making shoes for a long time, primarily known for their trail running shoes. For their trail hiking shoes. But yeah, I think we're certainly going to see them make a big impact in these years to come.
I think like Merrell as a brand, from my perspective, like going back some years, they were more known for like kind of cool gorp-core stuff. And they still are making that, the good looking shoes, and also almost like the winter shoe that you're going to see in the market in London, but it's made for like the high mountains. And funny you mentioned like the Long Sky. I see people racing 100Ks in the Long Sky.
Yeah. There's a couple of guys on the team, a couple of Spanish guys who racing CCC this year in the Long Sky. For me, the Agility Peak's been the shoe that I chose for CCC this year. And the shoe that I done a lot of my racing in as well. It suits me a little bit better with just that little bit more cushion to the shoe. But yeah, the Long Sky is, for certain people, they just make it work for long periods. And it's such a light shoe, and it's a very comfortable shoe. I think that's why it works so well, really. It's just supreme comfort for what it is. And the grip is obviously got that trusty mega grip on the bottom. And I think it was the shoe Fred Tronchon won the world, world champs in this year, and that itself was a very challenging course for a lot of people. And I think he proved that it's not about plated shoes all the time. It's still very much a game in which a shoe that is just relevant for the demands of the course, which a sky running shoe like that essentially is, is ready to go big miles and if you've put the work in.
Yeah, Ricky, as we have said countless times on the podcast, it's not the shoe. Like the
Yeah.
shoe doesn't make the runner. Yes, a shoe could make a race harder, but it's always the athlete.
Yeah, like my mum used to say, the boots don't make the man, you know, when you were trying to buy the fancy football boots, the white ones or something. And she said, the boots don't make the man, you know, it's the training. Exactly. And everyone is looking for that little, you know, what's the fastest way to get fast? If I just buy this, or if I take this, or if I drink this, or if I eat this, you know, and look, at the end of the day, it comes down to how hard are you willing to work to get yourself to that level that the shoe may then make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Last
sure.
thing on the shoe front, tell us a little bit about is it the Agility Adapt, the one that you ran?
Yeah, the MTL Adapt Matrix. Yeah, so you've got the Matrix upper on there, which is always, you know, industry leading kind of upper really. It's in terms of very light, drains well, which is obviously good in the hot, humid climate or just a summer race when you're chucking water on yourself. But yeah, in terms of the midsole, you've got Merrell are basically doing. You've got like kind of a dual density foam, but what I believe there is on the inside, you've got like a more of a softer platform, which is then encased within an EVA midsole. So it's a nice responsive sole, but at the same time, they've got what Merrell does. You've got flex grooves within the shoe, so it adapts basically to the terrain around it. So even though you've got a high stack shoe, which if you put it side by side with another high stack shoe, it looks just as perhaps aggressive and perhaps unpredictable on those rougher surfaces. What you have with the Adapt is a shoe that actually conforms really nicely to what's beneath you, so you still have good ground feel for a shoe that is ultimately as thick as a lot of its competitors. So what it's allowed me to do essentially in Lantau is kind of steamroll over all the rough, unpredictable, rocky stuff and have the confidence that I'm not going to bounce off and ping my ankle or what have you. Obviously, you still need to be able to run. You still need to be able to deal with that terrain. But I found for the high stack nature of the shoe, certainly does conform to the trail nicely and give you a good ground feel that just helps you to keep the momentum up and not find yourself being more cautious because of what you got on your feet, which is never what you want in these races. You just want a shoe that you know I was going to respond to what's coming up and just maintain the momentum through the trail.
Last thing on Merrell, obviously it's you're reasonably new to Merrell. Has there been any focus on the World Trail Majors in terms of like contract and bonuses? I know that some brands are now adding it in at a lower tier than a UTMB, but are Merrell interested in UTM performances?
Well, for me at least, Merrell have been really open to, in terms of that kind of side of the sport, and they've been very open to having that discussion as to what my goals are into the year, and then I'm working with that. So certainly, it's a brand that is very obviously very much aligned with skyrunning, and we've been the main sponsor for that series. And with the as we already talked about, the Long Sky and the Skyfire, the shoes that are built for that terrain in those races. But yeah, in terms of when they signed me, they knew that skyrunning is in my focus and the long races are. They're very much open to discussing that.
Yeah, so I've been asking this question to close out the podcast, so I'm going to put it to you. If UTMB was a Welsh company, how would it differ?
You've been asking that to every guest, have you?
Not the Welsh part.
Having a lot of Welshmen on. If UTMB was a Welsh company, Han, that's a really difficult question to answer, isn't it? Certainly, if it was a Welsh company, you'd have your English and your Welsh names for everything. It'd be very much more multilingual in that sense. But yeah, I guess in terms of I'd like to think it would be very friendly and very community focused, and yeah, perhaps would be.
So we're talking multilingual. I bet we get that in Ireland too. We've got English and we've got Gaelic. So the signage would be different. Like, what would we be seeing at the aid stations? Are we still going to see charcuterie and baguette? I don't think so.
No, you'd be seeing Welsh cakes and cawl, sorry, which is a Welsh soup. Yeah, you certainly wouldn't be. You won't be seeing quite so many of that stuff. But yeah, it'd be a little bit of different atmosphere, I think, wouldn't it? Be a little more. I think there'd certainly be a good element of the traditional side of Wales trying to be pushed into it. But yeah, that's an interesting question, a really hard one to answer. That's for sure.
Sorry for putting you on the spot, but maybe I gotta tweak that question for future guests. But we'll see. All right, Harry. Look, thanks for joining Trail Talk. It's been fun to talk through all of the things that we've chatted about. I've really found that interesting. We did lose Ricky due to a dead battery, but it's also Ricky's bedtime, so
Bedtime.
we'll let him go. But thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's good talk. Thanks for having me, and all the best.